Today's number is 39, as in 39%. That's the percentage of songs uploaded to streaming platforms every single day that are fully AI generated, not assisted by AI, not AI mastered, fully created by a machine. Nearly 4 out of every 10 songs now. And someone just went to prison for using that to steal $8 million. More on that later. Well, it's Friday. Happy Friday, by the way. And this was the week AI companies showed you who they really are. Anthropic went to court against the Pentagon, and they won. A federal judge called it classic illegal First Amendment retaliation. OpenAI killed 2 products in 1 week and is now building a super app. Meta laid off 700 more people while spending $135 billion on AI projects. And a study from Boston Consulting Group finally gave a name to that feeling you get when your fourth AI tool of the day makes you want to close your laptop. They're calling it AI brain fry. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you've been with us all week, buckle up for a recap. And if this is your first time with us, welcome to the show. You picked one of those weeks. I'm Don Michalik, and this is your Morning Intelligence for Friday, March 27, 2026. Today is our Friday show, the Friday 3 recap. We're looking at the 3 biggest AI stories of the week, plus a deep cut that's going to make you look at your Spotify playlist a little bit differently. First up, the Anthropic Pentagon ruling just dropped last night, and the judge did not hold back. We'll break down what she said, what it means for the industry, and why it affects the AI tools you use at work. Then we'll get into the Friday 3. The BCG study that says using too many AI tools at work is actually making you worse at your job. Meta's latest round of layoffs and what they tell you about who's getting the cut in the AI era. And OpenAI, which killed 2 products this week and is now building something entirely different. In a deep cut today, Google just launched an AI that writes full songs. Spotify says almost 40% of the music uploaded to streaming platforms is now AI generated. And a man just pled guilty to the first ever criminal conviction for AI music fraud. That's all just one story. And we'll close with a robot that spoke at the White House before any human did. Let's go ahead and get into it. If you've been listening this week, you know the story. Anthropic versus the Pentagon. Quick version for anyone just joining us. The Pentagon asked Anthropic, the company behind Claude, for unconditional access to its AI for military operations. Anthropic said no. Specifically, it refused to allow Claude to be used for autonomous lethal targeting or mass surveillance of Americans. The Pentagon responded by blacklisting Anthropic, cutting it off from federal contracts and agency partnerships. Anthropic sued, and we've been tracking this since last week. Well, yesterday, Judge Rita Lynn finally ruled. She issued a preliminary injunction in Anthropic's favor, and her language was not very subtle. She called the Pentagon's blacklisting, quote-unquote, classic illegal First Amendment retaliation. She said the government's actions look like an attempt to cripple Anthropic for exercising its right to set ethical limits on its own technology. And she ordered the Pentagon to immediately restore Anthropic's ability to do business with federal agencies and contractors while the full case plays out. Now, just for a reminder here, this is a preliminary injunction, not a final ruling. The full lawsuit continues, but the bar for a preliminary injunction is high, and the judge has to believe the plaintiff is likely to win on the merits. And Judge Lynn clearly does here. So, for some context, during oral arguments on Tuesday, she spent about 90 minutes grilling both sides. At one point, she called the government's actions troubling and suggested the blacklisting was designed to send a message to the entire AI industry. That's about as far as a federal judge goes before issuing a ruling. So, why does all this matter? Well, here's why this matters just beyond Anthropic. This ruling establishes that an AI company has the legal right to draw ethical red lines, even ones the federal government disagrees with, without being punished for it. Before yesterday, there was a real question about whether an AI company could say no to the Pentagon without getting absolutely destroyed. The answer, at least for now, is yes. And there's an interesting wrinkle here. Axios reported yesterday that even while the case was being argued, Anthropic and the Pentagon were having back channel conversations about a revised deal, one with narrow use cases instead of a blank check the DoD originally demanded. If you use Claude at work, this ruling matters to you. A federal judge just told the Pentagon, you don't get to destroy a company because it said no. That's a precedent that protects every AI tool in use today. All right, let's get into our Friday 3 here. Our first story up is about AI brain fry. This one might be the most relatable story we've ever covered on this show. Boston Consulting Group published a study this month of nearly 1,500 full-time American workers. And the finding that's been making the rounds all week is this. Using more AI tools does not make you more productive. In fact, after a certain point, it makes you less productive, significantly less productive. Here are the numbers. Workers using 1 to 3 AI tools reported higher productivity, less burnout, and better focus. But once they crossed into 4 or more tools, everything kind of flipped. Productivity fell, mental fatigue spiked, decision making got slower, and time spent on tasks actually increased, in some cases by as much as 346%. That's not a typo, 346%. The researchers coined a term for it, AI brain fry. It's the cognitive overload that comes from constantly supervising, cross-referencing, quality checking multiple AI systems at the same time. About 14% of workers in the study reported symptoms including mental fog, slower decision-making, and headaches. And the roles hit hardest? Marketing, finance, HR, software development. Here's what really stuck with me. The lead BCG researcher was asked if she thinks people will adapt. Her answer? Well, she's kind of pessimistic about it. She doesn't think the human brain is wired to manage this many AI co-pilots simultaneously. The sweet spot, according to the data, is 2 to 3 tools used incredibly intentionally. And 34% of workers experiencing AI brain fry said they're thinking about quitting their jobs, not because AI replaced them, but because managing AI is burning them out. The bottom line here, if you've been given access to 5 tools at work and you feel more scattered than productive, this study says that's not you. You're not the problem. It's a design problem. Count your tools. If you're over 3, consider cutting back to 2 that actually help. Our second story in the Friday 3, Meta cut 700 more jobs while spending $135 billion on AI projects. On Wednesday, Meta laid off approximately 700 employees across 5 divisions: Facebook, Reality Labs, Global Operations, Recruiting, and Sales. This is the second round of cuts in 2026, following January's eliminations of over 1,000 positions in Reality Labs and VR Studios. Senior executives were reportedly directed to a plan for 20% workforce reductions, which would translate to roughly 15,000 jobs from a workforce of about 79,000 people. Now, here's the part that lands differently depending on who you are. When news of Meta's broader restructuring first leaked earlier this month, the stock actually jumped 3%. Wall Street rewarded the cuts before they even happened. At the same time, Meta is projecting record capital expenditures of $115 to $135 billion this year, nearly all of it directed at AI infrastructure. And they're hiring aggressively for AI roles even as they cut everywhere else. I want to be specific about which divisions were cut. Facebook, Reality Labs, Global Ops, Recruiting, Sales, these aren't niche engineering teams. These are the kind of roles that millions of professionals hold at companies across every industry. When Meta cuts its sales, recruiting, operations, teams to fund AI, it's not just a tech company story. It's a signal about where every large company may be headed. And the contrast is the story here. One building gets emptied, another building gets built. Same company, same week. The people leaving are in roles that look a lot like the roles a lot of people hold. The money is going to machines. The bottom line here, Meta isn't cutting AI jobs. It's cutting the jobs around AI. Our third story in the Friday 3. Who is OpenAI now? This one is less about a single headline and more about a pattern that became impossible to ignore this week about OpenAI. Let me walk you through the sequence here. Just this past Wednesday, OpenAI shut down Sora, its video generation tool. 1 million people downloaded it in its first 5 days. Disney was in talks to invest $1 billion, and OpenAI pulled the plug because it was losing money on every video generated and it couldn't fix the economics. Then, yesterday, OpenAI announced it's indefinitely shelving its plans for adult mode for ChatGPT. Sam Altman first announced this feature back in October, promising adult users access to explicit AI content. It was delayed from December to March, and now it's finally gone. The reason? OpenAI's entire well-being advisory council unanimously told the company not to do it. Employees pushed back, investors pushed back, and it turned out the age verification system was misidentifying minors as adults about 12% of the time. So they killed the feature. And in the background, OpenAI is building something entirely new. Axios reported this month that the company is consolidating ChatGPT, its Codex coding assistant, and a Chromium-based browser it built internally into a single desktop super app. One application for writing, coding, and browsing. Here's what ties all these stories together. OpenAI is deciding who it wants to be. A year ago, it was trying to be everything. Video generation, entertainment, adult content, shopping, search. This week, it killed the experiments and doubled down on one thing, being the productivity tool on your desktop. Sora, too expensive. Adult mode, too risky. This super app, that's the bet. And there's a number that explains why. Anthropic is now capturing 73% of enterprise AI spending among first-time buyers. OpenAI has fallen to 27%. If you're OpenAI, looking at that scoreboard, you don't launch a video toy. You build the app that wins the office. Oh, and one more thing. As of this week, GPT 5.4 Mini Thinking, the step-by-step reasoning mode that was previously behind a paywall, is now free for every ChatGPT user. Open the app, tap the plus menu, select Thinking, and you just got a free upgrade. The bottom line here, if ChatGPT is your daily driver at work, the tool is about to change significantly. The side projects are dead. The focus is you at your desk getting work done. That's actually good news. All right, before we keep going here into the deep cut, it's Friday, which means this is the episode designed to share. If morning intelligence has been a part of your week, send this one to somebody else. That friend who keeps saying, I really need to pay more attention to the AI industry, but I don't know where to start. Well, consider this their starting point. Text them the link. Takes all of 5 seconds. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, let's talk about your Spotify playlist now. Today's deep cut starts with a question. When was the last time you discovered a new artist on Spotify? Maybe through Discover Weekly, maybe through another playlist, maybe through one of those artist-like recommendations. You tap play, thought, sounds pretty good, and moved on. Well, here's what I need to tell you. There's now a meaningful chance that song was not made by a human. This week, Deezer, one of the major streaming platforms, disclosed a number that genuinely had to be read twice. 60,000 fully AI-generated tracks are uploaded to Deezer every single day. That's 39% of all new music delivered to the platform on a daily basis. Not AI-assisted, not AI mastered, fully generated by machines. 4 out of every 10 new songs. And Deezer isn't alone. Sony Music has requested the removal of up to 135,000 AI-generated songs that were impersonating its artists across major streaming platforms. These aren't parodies, they're tracks designed to sound like a very specific artist, distributed under fake names, collecting real royalties. Which brings us to the crime that we talked about at the top of the show. A man named Michael Smith from North Carolina pleaded guilty on March 19th in what is now the first ever criminal conviction for AI music streaming fraud. Over 7 years, Smith used AI tools to generate hundreds of thousands of fake songs and deployed bot accounts to stream them. 661,000 fake streams per day. He stole $8 million in royalties. That's money that would have gone to actual musicians. Spotify's response this week, a new tool called Artist Profile Protection. Currently in beta, it lets artists review and approve any released song before it appears under their name, which sounds like a reasonable fix until you realize this means the problem is bad enough that Spotify had to build a tool to let artists defend their own identity on their platform. Now, layer this on top. This week, Google launched Lyra 3 Pro, its most advanced AI music generation model. Lyra 3 Pro can create full structured songs up to 3 minutes long. Not just beats or loops, full songs with intros, verses, choruses, and bridges. You type a text prompt, and it writes a song with tempo conditioning, time aligned lyrics, and professional quality structure. You can even feed it an image, and it'll set the mood for the visual. It's rolling out inside of Gemini app for paid subscribers, Google Vids for workspace users, and Vertex AI for businesses. All tracks are watermarked with Google's Synth ID to indicate AI origin. So think about where we are. The tools to create AI music just got dramatically better. The volume of AI music on streaming platforms is already at 39% and climbing. The first person to exploit this at scale just went to prison, and the platforms are scrambling to build defenses. Here's the takeaway here. If you're someone who creates marketing videos, social content, or presentations you've been paying for stock music licenses on, Google just made that free for workspace subscribers. That's a practical win. But the bigger story is this. 4 out of 10 new songs on streaming platforms aren't made by humans, and that number is only going up. Next time you discover a new artist, check if they have more than one album, an actual social media presence, and a real identity. Because the line between music and content generated to extract royalties is getting harder and harder to see by the day. And that's not a music industry problem. It's a preview of what happens when AI generated content becomes indistinguishable from the real thing in every creative field. Music is just where we can hear it first. All right, some fun stuff here before we go. This week, First Lady Melania Trump hosted the Fostering the Future Together Global Coalition Summit at the White House. Representatives from 45 countries, heads of state, diplomats, very serious people in the room with her. And the first speaker was a robot. Figure 3, a humanoid robot built by a Sunnyvale startup called Figure AI, walked on the stage and greeted the audience in 11 languages before any human took the microphone. 11 languages in the White House before the First Lady even got a chance to speak. And then it got a little bit weirder. After the robot sat down, or powered down, I guess, I'm not sure, Mrs. Trump pitched a vision of humanoid educators in American classrooms. She described a robot called Plato that would teach classical studies while students spent more time on sports and socializing. For some context here, Figure AI originally introduced this robot in October as a home assistant for laundry, cleaning, and dishes. 6 months later, it's speaking at the White House. Whether that excites you or unsettles you probably says a lot about how you feel about AI in general. Either way, a robot spoke at the White House before any human did this week. And that's a sentence I genuinely did not expect to say in 2026. All right, let's look ahead to next week. A few things to watch this weekend and into next week. The Pentagon has not yet responded to the Anthropic injunction. We'll be watching for an appeal or a statement. President Trump's new PCAST Tech Council was just announced. Jensen Huang, Zuckerberg, and Larry Ellison are all in. But Elon Musk and Sam Altman, not so much. There's a story in there somewhere. And Google just launched a tool to import your entire ChatGPT history into Gemini. with a single click. The AI switching wars are officially on. We'll have all that and more on Monday. Looking forward to seeing you then. And that's Morning Intelligence for Friday, March 27th, 2026. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe from wherever you're listening. And since it's Friday, this is the episode to share. Send it to that one friend who keeps asking you, hey, what's going on in the world of AI? This is their starting point. I'm Don Michalik. Have a fantastic weekend, and thank you for listening.